guys, and welcome to Conversations with Keandra. We are in for our final segment of Work, Work, Work. When do we break? So, part two of our Work, Work, Work break series. So, we have another special guest on with us right now who would love to introduce herself to you guys, and we'll jump right in.
Hi, everyone. My name is Shanava St. and I'm so excited to be here.
Yes, yes. We're so excited to be continuing this conversation, guys, because this is something that's so important. We already went through part one where you got so much great tips and advice from other special guests that we had on. So we just want to continue on with that conversation and just raise even more questions for tonight. All right, so we'll jump right in. So, Shanaba, we want to ask you, or just kind of get the question going. What has been your experience with being consumed by work and not knowing when to take a break?
That's a interesting question. Honestly, my experience with being consumed by work had probably started since I was in, I'll just say grade school, because um, in so I'm Haitian American. I grew up in an immigrant household, and it's school is something that's taken super seriously. Having bad grades, that's like not a thing, right? So school is something that I always took super seriously, doing my homework, making sure that I'm joining academic clubs, making sure that I'm joining extracurricular activities in middle school and in high school to make sure that I stand out so that I could get to, a top college. So that idea or that experience of being consumed by work just really started at an early age. And I don't think I really noticed it until honestly after I graduated from undergrad, because in the beginning it was just like, going through grade school was more so just this is something that I have to do to get to the next step. But even from an early age, there was no, okay, let me take a break and rest. And, that idea of mental health and taking breaks and checking in with yourself and making sure that you're mentally good before you move on to that next step, because burnout does exist, and not just in adults. It exists in children. It exists
Hmm.
in preteens and teenagers too. So I'd say that was my earliest experience with being consumed by work. And even now, as an adult, having graduated from college, I'm a full-time teacher. um, Being consumed by my work is definitely, it's very easy to be consumed with your work as a teacher, because um, you're dealing with students, and you're not just dealing with your students, you're dealing with their families too, and with any circumstances that they may be dealing with at home that spills over into the classroom,
Hmm.
to no fault of their own, but that's just how it is.
Real Shanava. Oh my goodness. Like it's so interesting just hearing like how that it shifted and it's changed for you. Like that idea of just working and that being instilled, so early on, even like from a cultural perspective. And that it's so interesting just to hear how it's changed over the years as you've navigated, from early childhood schooling to
Right,
now your professional career. And
right,
I
right.
honestly, girl, I think that's it's a shared experience for so many people, so yeah, thank you for sharing that.
Of
you know
course.
I feel like another point that it's also so good to hit on is just we talk about just this idea of balance and creating just brace for ourselves. It's really important. Like, what have you found to be the most effective solution to creating that balance, like creating that balance, creating that
Mm.
self-care for yourself. So whether that meant saying no to a new project, a task, a position, that your boss may have asked you to do, what does that look like for you?
Well, I'll just say saying no is very hard for me. I say yes to like everything. If somebody needs help with something, whether that be a student, a colleague, I was also in graduate school for the past 2 years. So if anything was asked of me from classmates or from friends, I was always just like, okay, sure, I'll help out. And even if I know I have like not even a second to spare, I'm going to try and squeeze it in and create that time for me to help out whoever is in need of help. So to be honest, I think I'm a little bit better now, but I didn't do a good job of balancing and just making sure that I'm taking time for myself, just because again, for me, growing up, it was always about the grind. You got to grind hard while you're young
Mm,
so that you can, you know, live enjoy the fruits of your labor while you're older, maybe be able to retire early or something like that.
right.
And although that is, true in a sense, you want to put effort in now so you don't have to work harder later, but that doesn't mean that, putting in work now means you can't rest at all.
Right.
So establishing balance for me really came post undergrad. So I started teaching in the fall of 2019, and for like the first quarter, so quarter is about 9 weeks. So for the first quarter of the school year, I was always taking work home. Um, I bring home things to grade. I would bring home anything for me to lesson plan. And I would notice that I was always so bogged down and so tired from
Mm,
not just teaching, but being in grad school and just trying to manage my personal life and personal affairs, that I really didn't have time to grade anyways, or
mm,
I would be stressing myself at home trying to grade and then go back into the classroom and still be stressed because I didn't finish grading and
mm,
things like that. So ultimately, after about the first 2.5 months of my first year teaching, I realized that, okay, I need to do what I can to establish some sort of boundary, because
mhm,
at this point I'm trying to eat dinner. After I eat dinner, I'm trying to work on this paper while also trying to lesson plan, and it's just
mhm,
not working. And at
right.
that point, when I'm overwhelmed with so many things, like at that point I don't want to do anything. I just want to go to sleep.
Right.
And you know yes, I did need to rest, but at the same time, nothing was getting done. So I not only was falling behind on lesson plans, but I was falling behind on my
Mm,
work in graduate school, and I was falling behind on my sleep because I was unproductive
mm,
because I didn't manage my time well. So
right.
everything was just kind of spiraling, to be honest. And I will say that me establishing that boundary and saying, okay, well, I'm not going to bring work home anymore. I'm not going to lesson plan at home. It has helped so much. Establishing those boundaries was definitely helpful for me because I decided to say, all right, I'm not going to bring homework anymore. From now on, if I need to lesson plan and I didn't get to do it during my planning period, or if I need to grade and I didn't get to do it during my planning period, I am going to go to work 30 minutes early. I'm going to go to work 45 minutes early or an hour early. So because I teach high school starts at 7:25, and I typically get to work at 6 a.m. just so I can have that hour and 25 minutes for me to lesson plan or grade. Or sometimes I just um, work on personal things, even, if I needed to work on my graduate school tasks, like if I had a short quiz that could be done in 30 minutes, if I didn't get to do it the night before, instead of me trying to stay up and, risk my health by losing sleep, I'd say, okay, I'm going to go to work an hour early and I'm going to squeeze in these assignments, or I'm going to squeeze in the things that I didn't get to grade. But definitely not bringing that work home was super, super helpful. So now I live by a motto: what doesn't get done at work, it's not coming home with me. I'm not bringing it home.
Yes.
It's going to have to wait until the next day to get done. So if
Mhm,
I try to tell my students that I'll give them their test back or quiz, any form of assessment project, any assignment that I grade within um, 48 hours, but normally I do it in 24. But if there is an instance where it's even taking more than 48 hours for whatever reason, at first I used to get really bogged down on myself, like, dang, I told them I'd have it by this day, but I don't have it. And then I try and rush and stay up to grade or something like that,
mhm.
or um, to provide feedback on an assignment. But now I just say, okay, I'm just going to tell them, I'm a human being. We're all human. And just as they're late with some of my assignments too. So,
Mhm,
I might be a
mhm.
day late with your feedback. I might be a day late with your grade, finishing, grading the test. So if anything, I just tell them, okay, I don't have the test today. I don't have the quizzes today, but I will get them back to you by this date or by this date. And I no longer pressure myself. Obviously, I'm not going to take 2 weeks to grade something. But
Mhm.
at the same time, if I need that extra day or I need that extra 2 days, I'm going to give it to myself and I'm not going to stress myself out about it. So, yeah.
Yes. I love that, Shanava. I'm like, way to go for putting your foot down and just like, like recognizing the need for that for break, and knowing when it's appropriate, with balancing out work and just like self. and knowing how to divide that up. You kind
Right.
of went into our next question. So I'm curious. What would be your advice to others on like how to create that balance? So you just gave, oh my God, you gave such a great example of ways that you found being most effective. In learning how to create a balance. Between work and knowing when to bring work home and when not to bring it home. So I'm curious. What would be your advice for others? So we think about fields like, so you're in education, so we think about others who may be in business, they may be in law, government, academia, nonprofits, or just health. So a lot of those different disciplines, with business, a lot of it, it's about output. What can we get out of our returns, or just some of the different ones that we've recognized. We probably know a lot of friends, if not family, who
Hmm.
they're working hours, long shifts, in their careers, and then that work does get brought home. Like, what would be some, maybe like tips or just advice that you would give for just others in other disciplines when knowing, um, when is it enough? Should there be a cutoff point for bringing work home?
Honestly, I'm a strong advocate for never bring your work home, period. However, I do understand that not every job is as, I don't even want to say flexible because teaching isn't necessarily flexible,
Right.
but it's not life or death in my
Mm,
hands. For example, I have a friend who just recently left a position working as I think it's called a CPI for Department of
mm,
Children and Families, and as a caseworker for DCF or as a CPI, you kind of sorta are, it's really hard to not bring things home. So
mhm.
you might be out in the field, you might be making house visits, and then maybe your day ends at, to be honest, her day would not even end at a specific time every day. So normally, like for me, I know, okay, school's done at 1:50 p.m. I
Mm,
might stay an hour after the tutor and then I'm gonna go home. But for someone who's working a job like that, you might be off at 4 p.m. one day, you might be off at 7 p.m. the next day, you
I
might be
see.
off at 1 a.m. the next day, even though you
Mm,
started at 9 a.m. the previous day. And
right.
you're working 10, 12-hour shifts, 15-hour shifts, and then when you get home, you still have a case write up to do because, that child might be in danger or they might need to be removed from the home, or you might need to call um, the lawyer on staff or something like that. So,
Mm,
in those situations, it's like a life or death in your hands. So you can't really say, well, I'm just going to put that off for another 2 days or 48 hours because you can't. So, one, I would say it's really important to know yourself and know what your limits are.
that's
Sometimes you
good.
don't really find that out until you're in a job and then you realize, okay, well, this is too much for me. And if it is, my advice is to leave. As much as you care about it, your mental health is definitely more important. And, for
Mhm,
some people, they're not necessarily okay, but they can deal with it better than others when it comes to not having um, the ability to draw those fine lines in terms of boundaries because of the
right.
nature of their job. Or if, you know, in another case, if they're not like a CPI worker, I mean, CPI for the Department of Children and Families, maybe they're an on call nurse or an on-call doctor or surgeon.
Mm,
And in that case, again, life or death is in your hands. So you can't really say, well, I'm just not going to save a life today.
right.
They need a heart. I don't feel like putting it in for them. They
Right.
can just, whatever. So in that situation, it's hard, but for those kind of jobs, it's also important to use that PTO, to use that,
Yes.
that you might not have the ability to draw those fine lines with boundaries, but,
Mhm.
I would hope that you would have benefits in some way for paid leave or paid time off, and just making sure, depending on the job, how you can structure it so that, maybe if you have 4 weeks of PTO, you can divide it up and do like 2 weeks every quarter instead
Mm,
of doing, because somebody might want to take a whole month, but then if you use it all up,
at
your whole
once.
month at once, then you have 11 months until you can get another
Mm,
set of, of days. So I would definitely say to divvy that up so that you are making sure you're taking breaks in between and not just taking all of your PTO at one time.
right.
Um, and
That's
then if
good.
you need a mental health day, just take it just take it, because at the end of the day, whether you're a surgeon or a CPI or a teacher, there's unless the company is severely, severely like understaffed, there's somebody else who can help out. Even if you're a surgeon, that's a little bit more complex, but there may be another surgeon who can step in and help you
Mhm.
do what you got to do. There might be another caseworker who could step in, at DCF. There might be another teacher who could cover your class, or you might be able to get a substitute. So yeah, definitely knowing your limits is super important, because if you know
Mhm.
for a fact, like I know for a fact, me working a job as a surgeon or like a CPI for DCF, I already know it's not in my personality to do that, because I need boundaries, period. And even if you're like an entrepreneur and you're essentially responsible for your own income, because if you don't do what you have to do in terms of your business, then like you're not going to get any money. You can't
Mhm.
feed yourself, you can't take care of your family, et cetera, et cetera. So in those cases, it's still really important to draw boundaries with yourself. And if you
Mm.
have employees, with your employees as well. Um, because for me, like I'm also an entrepreneur, I have a small business. And in the beginning, I was always just consuming myself in my work
Mm.
and, working on my business, even when I should have been lesson planning, or working on my business when I should have been
That's real.
working on papers for grad school, or just working on it when I should have just been asleep. And I had to learn to, okay, I'm going to set aside these hours during the week to work on my business. I'm going to set aside these hours during the week to dedicate to tutoring. Um, and that has helped me. Again, I'm not super consistent, so still a work in progress, but um, that has definitely helped, setting aside that dedicated time. And
Mm.
you might have 1 or 2 days where you really have to, you have to meet a certain deadline, because maybe you have an event the next day and there's something that's not set up correctly in a PowerPoint or something like
Mhm.
that. In that case, I mean, I would want to like the inner me really wants to say, oh, just go to sleep and do it in the morning. But then also, I'm the type of person, like if I know something's not right and I have like a big day or a big event the next day, like I can't really go to sleep until it's fixed, so that I could sleep in peace. So, there might be those circumstances, but overall trying to establish that set work schedule,
Mm.
even if that means, okay, you can only like realistically work on your business maybe 3 hours out of the week. As much as you might want to do 15 or 20, you know, you can't really do it, because you're going to burn yourself out to the point
Right.
where your business isn't going to be successful, and you won't be able to produce that income anyways. So
Mm. Oh my goodness, Shanava. I'm like, you just you raised like you touched on so many great points, to lead the viewers with just how to effectively divvy up their time, like no matter what field, like Shanava was saying, we don't want y'all out here not saving lives, that's important, but knowing, when it's appropriate to take my break. So like, Shanava mentioned really great points of splitting up your PTO. You have options there, or thinking about are you someone that would enjoy vacation time in 1 month? Or do you prefer it split up? Just finding your niche with that. I just oh my goodness, I love that. I you know I want to just even go a little further on this issue or this topic that we're discussing. Really important topic, and I just when I think about, when you think about working individuals, whatever that looks like for everyone, a common mentality is, Shanava, the more projects that one takes on, the more packed your schedule is, the less amount of sleep that you're getting. This means the more productive you are, and so I am just so curious of, like just your continued thoughts on that. Does busyness equal productivity?
oh
Should those
no,
be grouped in the same sentence?
no ma'am. um I'm like the queen bee of being busy. If there's anyone busier than me, I'm not gonna, and I'm not even bragging like, oh my God, I'm so busy. This is a great accomplishment. Because to be honest, there are some days I'm just like, why am I even doing all this stuff? Like, why am I risking my sleep, my mental health? Like, I'm over here stressed. I said, full-time teacher. I was in grad school. At the same time that I was in grad school, I was still like kind of active in my sorority. And then on top of that, oh, let me go ahead and start a business. Like, why not?
Come on,
And then
entrepreneur.
and then on top of that, like, oh, I might have, a couple other organizations that I'm a part of. And to be honest, like just being real, we are not like the only person who can do exceedingly,
Mm,
above all things is God.
mhm. Amen.
And I'm not God. I can't do
Mhm.
all these things and do them well, to be honest. I could probably
Yes.
do one thing and do it well and do
Right.
the other three or four things and do them, okay or subpar or, you know, whatever. I'll
Right.
just be skimming by, but I'm not going to be doing everything well. Like,
Mhm.
let's be real. Even the most successful entrepreneurs or
Yes.
the most, whatever you deem as success in any field, successful doctor,
Mhm.
successful teacher, like everyone has to start off like with one thing, be great
Mm,
at that thing, let that reach, let that reach its maximum potential, and then you
right.
can double back and take on a second project or a task. That's not
Mm,
to say that you can't be a full-time worker and be a full-time graduate student,
right.
um, and get good grades and do your job well. You
Mm,
can, but you're going to sacrifice something, and it's probably
yep.
going to be your mental health and your sleep.
Mm,
Um, in your physical health too. So um, I would just say, you know, really taking the time to assess what
mm.
you really want to give your energy to. Because at
That's
the end of the
good.
day, the things that we sign up for, the projects that we give ourselves, or the tasks that we take on, just really asking yourself, like, how does this lead me to, where I want to be? And how does it
Right.
align with what I'm supposed to be doing, like my purpose?
Mhm.
Because at the end of the day, for me, it's like, and I'm only, don't think that I'm really spitting wisdom because I just figured this out probably like last week. So, I just feel like it's super important to know, like, okay, what I'm doing now, how does this help me achieve what my vision is or what God's vision is for me? Because at the end of
Mhm.
the day, like, if you're a part of an organization or you're working at a job and it's not really serving serving your I don't want to say serving your purpose, that's probably the wrong phrase to use, but if it's not really getting you to where you're supposed to be, then like why are you doing it?
That's good.
Obviously there are instances, where you might be working a job that has nothing to do where what your purpose is, but you just need to pay your bills, so you got to do what you got to do, which is understandable.
Mm,
But if you're taking on, 5 million other things that one isn't bringing you income to pay your bills, and two isn't, you know, going to lead you to your purpose, then why are you doing it? And I had to really assess that for myself. And, when you, especially when you're in college, you kind of want to join a whole bunch of organizations. One
mhm.
to kind of find your group of friends and fit in, but then also, you want to make sure your resume is looking right and tight when you graduate and that you have some leadership experience and some things on your resume. But joining all these clubs or these organizations,
Mhm.
especially because some of them are really like realist, like really like repetitive, and they're going
Right.
to give you the same. I'm not going to say they're going to give you the same exact experience, but you know, ultimately, um, you can maybe, let's say you're part of 6 or 7 clubs, you can maybe cut that down to 2 or 3 and pick the ones that are really, really most important to you
Mm,
and most important to you, you know, getting to your purpose and getting
yes.
to live out, what you're destined to do.
Amen, Shanava. I'm like, that's so good. I love how like just the connection that you raise with just purpose, and the things that we can be doing now, still and channeling, breaks, balance, and making sure that what we're doing, it's all connected to where we want to be in life, the purpose that God has of our lives. So I love those points that you raised. I and just as we continue on with this conversation, I even want to shift into this. I feel like a phrase that we've heard a lot, I'm sure in songs, we even heard our parents discussing it, is just having to hustle, hustle, hustle wherever we go, or having to hustle to get to where you want to be in life, just having this hustle mentality. And so I'm just I would love to hear your thoughts further on this, Chanel, this hustle mentality that we have. Is it outdated? Is it dated?
Um, I don't know. I don't want to say I'm 50-50, but how do I put it? I feel like you can still hustle and have balance. So I feel like the word hustle has a the connotation and just the energy, the idea of it is maybe what's outdated and how people define it. Because when you
Uh,
think of hustling, you think of doing whatever it takes, making, you know, all these sacrifices to get where you want to be. And don't get me
mm,
wrong, to be successful, you're going to have to make sacrifices, period, to,
right.
to achieve your purpose and walk in alignment with what God has for you. You're going to have to make sacrifices.
Mhm,
But that doesn't mean you have to sacrifice everything all the time, every single day.
mm,
Maybe one day you might have to sacrifice your sleep. Maybe one day you might have to sacrifice, you know, um, anything, something. But that doesn't mean you have to sacrifice something or sacrifice everything every single day, especially your
mm,
mental health. So, we weren't put on this earth to work like mules and just
mhm,
work, 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 pay bills, and
right,
then die. Like,
right,
I don't think
yes.
that's what we were put here to do. We were put here to, serve God first and
Mhm,
foremost, and then make an impact and, connect and really just be happy in your purpose. So,
mhm,
yeah, I don't think I was put here to work all day, every day, and just think about work all the time and nothing else. That's a
mhm.
really sad life to live, at least in my opinion, because there's more to life than just work, and that goes
Mhm,
for a person
yes,
who's, an employee or a person who's an employer. It
right.
doesn't matter. There's more to life than just work or just business.
So good. That's so good. Man, I tell you, if you just were, on our part one, like listening to our part one, like just so many, I feel like that was just a shared response of all the guests. Like guys, like we were put on this earth for so much more. We all have greatness inside of us, and it's just waiting to be developed and just blossom into just greatness. And so, oh my gosh, and now that no, like I'm not just like you're spot on in all these points. Spot on. And I just, you hit on this a little bit when you talked about success, and I loved how you kind of went into with success as a whole. There's sacrifices that have to be made, and I'm just, give us let's hear your like, what are some tips and guides that you might even leave, for the viewers when we kind of look at success. Like let's dissect success a little bit, so we know, it looks differently for everyone. But I feel like often when we talk about success or even just like the hustle mentality, um, mental health elements are not brought up. We don't associate just the mental health and balance aspects of getting to that point, that we all want to achieve in life. And so I'm just, is there anything you'd like to add on that matter of just,
Um,
yeah.
I'll say, well, just as you said before, success is definitely different for every person because for some people, success is purely financial. Like it's just money,
Hmm.
being able to maintain a certain lifestyle, buy certain things, say that you make XYZ money. For some people, success is fame, it's being in the
Hmm.
limelight. For some people, success is power. So, and that could be power over your own life or power over others. You know what I'm saying? So success is definitely different for everyone. But I guess for me, true success isn't found unless I'm happy, I'm healthy, I'm living in my purpose, and,
Yes.
you know, and I'm healthy on all accounts, physically,
Hmm.
mentally, spiritually. Like if I'm making $1 million a day, let's just say I have, oh my God, that's $365 million a year. Let's just say I'm blessed and highly favored enough to be,
Yes,
you
that's
know,
right.
to be getting $1 million a day. If every single day I'm sad, every single day I feel like, yes, I have all this money, but is this really like what I'm meant to do? Like, why am I here? I
Mm,
still have that question. Then for me, I'm not successful. I'm just wealthy, but I'm not necessarily
mm,
successful. I just have money. You
right,
know, I can buy a nice house, maybe a nice car, but am I really successful?
right.
No, you know. Um, so I would just say for everyone just to find out what success means for you. So figure that out, write that down,
Mhm.
and then make sure that you're working every day towards what that is for you. And if what it is for you is purely money, then go ahead, make it rain on yourself. But if success for you includes being happy, having joy, and being mentally, spiritually, and physically happy, then you can't exclude that when you're working towards success.
Yes. Oh my goodness, that's so good, Shanava. That's so good. I love how you mentioned the three. It's like the physical, the spiritual, and the emotional, and just balance in all three of those things. So that's so good. Those points you raised. And as we're wrapping up this conversation, I want to pivot just a little bit. When we look at just let's talk about have a conversation on our employers. I feel like when we look at our employees, they help make up organizations. Without our employees, I don't know where companies or agencies or just organizations and groups, like, where do they stand. So our employees are very, very important. If there were any advice that you could give to employers, and just finding different outlets to support their employees, and taking breaks when it's needed, what would that look like? What would that be? Or just even just a perspective that you might have on that,
Um,
and generally speaking.
it's hard because every business is not the same.
That's good.
Um, and that's and like on many levels. So for example, you know, well, first and foremost, I guess I'll say I feel like mental health is something that should be taken seriously by everyone, employers and
Hmm.
employees. So as an employee, if you notice your colleague, your coworker is stressed out, maybe check in with them. Um, and as an employer, if you notice that your employees are stressed out in any way, you should take that into account too, because it will definitely affect your productivity.
Hmm.
Um, if someone is just emotionally drained, physically drained, they're probably not going to do their best work, which in the end is going to affect your pockets, anyways. Um, so just thinking from that first, just the economic standpoint, if you want to have the most productive workers, you should definitely care about their
Good.
mental health and their ability to produce their best work when they're at their best self. And just being human, because even employers have bad days. Even employers, you
Hmm.
know, as much as they might not announce it to
Right.
their employees, they have their moments where they might need a mental health day, but
Hmm.
it might be
That's
easier for
good.
them to take off than their employees. So just
Right.
re-examining the policies that are in place,
Mm,
how much PTO
good.
is offered. And it really sucks sometimes too, because if you're like a part-time worker, let's say like at Target. When I was at Target, I worked at Target in undergrad,
Hmm.
and I was a part-time employee. I didn't have any PTO.
Yep, it's true. It's
That
true.
didn't exist. There are no
The
benefits when
benefits
you're,
aren't the
for
same.
yeah, it's not the same, or it's non-existent. So,
Hmm.
there's no PTO. So I can call out and just say, I mean, I'm probably honestly gonna probably lie and say that I'm sick,
Mm, mm,
instead of saying that I need a mental health day.
mm,
They're gonna be like, what? Come into work, girl? Are you crazy?
that's good.
You can work on your mental health on your day off, but I probably just lie, say I'm sick, like physically sick,
Mm,
so that I can take my mental health day. But
wow.
obviously, if you do that too many times, you're probably going to get fired. So,
Wow.
and then trying to explain to your boss, like, hey, I just needed, a couple mental health days, and that's why I took off. Like, a lot of them don't really
Mm,
care about that. So, um,
wow.
just examining policies for part-time employees too, because they matter. And even for some of the
Mm-hmm.
full-time employees, they don't have
Mm-hmm.
some people don't have a lot of PTO. They might have seven
Right.
days in a whole year. There's 365 days in a year.
Right.
And some of them might only get seven.
Mm,
7 days. That's not a lot of
wow.
days.
Right.
So just examining that, maybe also making sure that the work environment is one that's welcoming, one that,
Mm-hmm.
maybe if there's space, if it's like a physical place or a facility, incorporating, like, I know, like at FSU, there's like a what's it called? I don't know exactly what it's called, but like it's a room where you can go and just sit in there and literally just take a nap, or like do
Mm,
yoga, or just listen to like serene music, put on headphones and just be to yourself or just take a
Mm,
break. So because even sometimes like break rooms at work aren't really comfortable. Like you might
mm,
have a chair and a table, you can eat your
right.
food and just sit there. Maybe they might have a TV in there, but like
It's
if it's a
not
bit more comfortable, I don't want to
mm,
say homey, but if
homey.
it's more inviting for people to actually, because if I
Mhm.
see a room with a couch in there, maybe there's like, you know, um, some soft music playing or something like that, like,
Oh, that's
and I
nice.
have a break, I can maybe during my break time, like, okay, yeah, I might be having a bad day and I'm gonna go to work, but when I have my 30-minute break, you know, I can unwind during that time and not really be bothered because
Right.
sometimes you'll be in the break room and people will come and talk to you even though you don't want to be talked
Mm,
to. So that's another thing too. But yeah, so just being more considerate overall.
mhm. That's so good, Shanaba. Oh my goodness, I definitely wanted to just dissect even further. Just one of the statements that you had made about like just the matter, the idea of having to lie, to take your mental health break, especially when we discuss the role of our employers. And so I just it's a common thing. You've even read articles on it of employees taking sick days when it's just for mental break, and I feel like that's something that's just so important, a really really important topic that you raised there, because I feel like a conversation definitely needs to be had there. Um, Employees should not have to lie to take to have break, to have a balance in their work days, to just and I think even just going even further, a conversation needs to be had on just the importance of what we said, just balance, the importance and more awareness, education on mental health, because it is real, and that there's no shame or um, taking something called a mental health break doesn't mean that you're less than. It doesn't mean that you're not as productive in your job, or
Hmm.
you don't want to be in your job. But it's something essential, like something that we should value just as much as um, you know also have just a lot of value to them. Holiday breaks. Just I definitely, wow. I think that's definitely a further conversation that needs to be had. Wow.
Yes, I agree for sure. For sure.
Hmm. Man, this has been so great. I just like the topics, the points that have been raised on
Yeah.
this call. It's been incredible. Like, if there were just any comments of just final advice and thoughts that you would love to give the viewers on just when they could sometimes feel consumed by work and just knowing when to break, like what would that be?
I would say check in with yourself for sure. Ask yourself, like, how am I really feeling physically, mentally? Because your mental affects your physical,
Mm-hmm.
um, for sure. So definitely check in with yourself and definitely don't take anything that you're feeling lightly, even if others do. So
Mm-hmm.
even if you feel like, okay, I've expressed my concerns to my employer or I've expressed my concerns to a colleague or a friend or a family member, and they are just like, oh, okay, well, you're going to have to, put on your big girl or big boy pants and
Mm,
tough it out and just go to work. Like, that doesn't necessarily mean that your feelings are invalid or that you should just, okay, shrug it off and forget about it. So
yes.
definitely check in with yourself and remember that nothing is worth your life. I'll say that.
Mm-hmm.
Nothing is worth it. Like no job, no organization, no amount of money is worth your livelihood
So
and your
good.
mental health, period.
Amen. That's I tell you, Janava, hey, this was the way to end off this session. I tell you, part two. Oh my gosh. Well, thank you so much for just being on as our guest as we're wrapping up this work, work, work. When do we break series? I think this has just been such a great, I think, eye-opening segment for all of us. I feel like there's going to be just so many points that we can all take from this, and we want to thank you guys so much for watching, and just continue on this journey with us when we work, find this just balance with work. And we just hope that we are able to just instill just you guys with more tips, more guidance on listening to your body. Catch you next time.